I was reading my Bible the other morning, just like I do just about every morning, and a passage of Scripture really jumped out at me that I just want to share with you today. It comes from the book of Joshua, and the story of Joshua is a continuation of the Exodus. The Israelites, they'd been freed from slavery in Egypt, and they spent 40 years wandering in the desert because of their rebellion against God. But now they are finally entering and taking the promised land that God had given to them. It was a very exciting time. And so Moses, right before he dies, passes the leadership of the new nation on to his apprentice, Joshua. And now Joshua, he leads them to take the new land. And then before he dies, he's at the end of his life, in the end of Joshua, and he begs the people to not let all of this be for nothing, to not fall back into their previous ways of rebelling against God and forgetting about him. And so Joshua 24:15 says, "Choose this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your father served in the region beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." Now that's a great verse. I love that verse, one of my favorites. And when my family and I built our house here, we actually came in while the house was being framed, and we wrote that verse and a few others on the walls and on the foundations of our house. It was symbolic of our promise to build our house on the foundation of serving God. And that is exactly what we've tried to do. But it's not easy, is it? I mean, it's not easy at all. And I'm a pastor, okay? I'm a professional Christian. But it's so important to keep your family on a foundation of God. Why? Well, do you know what happens not long after Joshua dies? Just a generation later, in the book of Judges, we read that Joshua dies, then his kids, who he taught to serve the Lord, eventually die. And then Judges 2:10 through 12 says, "And there arose another generation after them who did not know the Lord or the work that he had done for Israel. And the people of Israel did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and they served the Baals, and they abandoned the Lord, the God of their fathers, who had brought them out of the land of Egypt. They went after other gods from among the gods of the people who were around them and bowed down to them." Perhaps nothing is more important than passing on our faith from one generation to the next. Joshua served the Lord, and he passed that faith on to his kids, but they did not then pass it on to their children. They did not lead their home to serve the Lord. And so now, more than ever, we are reminded that spirituality doesn't begin at church, it begins at home. We can't rely on the church professionals to take care of everything if we can just get our family to the church building. We have to be the church. Now, the burden is on you. And now I know that sounds really intense, and it's a very heavy responsibility, and that's why so many people, they run away from it. But my challenge to you in the midst of this pandemic is to step up, lead your house to serve the Lord. If you have kids, read the Bible and pray with them. If you're married, how often do you pray with your husband or with your wife? Now, maybe you pray for them a bunch, but I found that's really easy to neglect praying with my own wife. If you're single, now's the time to establish who you will serve. Will you be a spiritual leader for God starting right now while you're single, and start with that foundation leading into an eventual relationship? Start serving God now so that one day, if you do get married, if you do have a family someday, you'll be building it on a solid foundation. If you're a grandparent, you can still be a spiritual father or a spiritual mother to your grandchildren. Decide this day who you will serve. Make church a priority, but don't make church the only place where spiritual discussions and spiritual things happen. Be a spiritual leader in your own home.